What's up, Fiend fam, and welcome to another video. I know that the watch time on most of my videos is around the 50% mark, but please, if you do nothing else, watch this video all the way through. It could save you from some serious heartache in the future. As many of you know, I was recently involved in an accident while riding my motorcycle. I'm continuing to heal, but it's going to be a long road to recovery. One of the many downsides of this pain is that sleep is very tough to come by. When I am able to get some, it's usually in short spurts and typically doesn't last for more than an hour or so. Being up late at night in my recliner because I can't sleep, I'm left alone with my thoughts. One thing that keeps coming back to me is insurance coverage, and I wanted to make a video to educate as many riders as I can out there. My case is still ongoing, so I'm not sure how well it's going to all work out. Although I pray that nobody else has to go through what I am, keep in mind that your mileage may vary and that this video isn't meant to be legal advice and that laws will vary from state to state. Consult your lawyer in your area or insurance carriers if you have further questions. So with that all the way, let's get started. Even though in my accident, the cager was 100% at fault, and admitted as much to the first responders, I might find myself in a less than fair situation. Unfortunately, too many riders, myself included, fail to do our homework when it comes to insurance, and it ends up biting us in the ass. How is it that we spend untold hours researching bikes and gear only to neglect something that will likely have the biggest impact on us should the unthinkable happen? First and foremost, know that motorcycle insurance is required by law in most states. Even if you have insurance for your automobile, your motorcycle needs to be added or it needs to have its own separate policy. Unless you specifically add your motorcycle to your existing policy, your auto insurance will not cover your motorcycle. In my research, I'm finding out that far too many people are not focusing on what coverages and amounts of those coverages to get, only to learn out after the fact of an accident that they weren't adequately covered. I'm going to focus on 3 different coverages in this video in order of importance to you based on my research. They are liability coverage, uninsured and underinsured coverage, and lastly, collision and comprehensive coverage. Number 1, liability coverage. Liability covers you when you are the at-fault person in an accident. It covers for damages that are caused to people or property in that accident. Keep in mind that this isn't just about the other motorist and their vehicle. If during the course of the accident your bike happens to damage a guardrail or something like that, you will be on the hook to the local transportation authority to pay for the repair or replacement of that property. While it varies, most states will require liability coverage. Check your local laws to make sure, however. For example, where I live, it is mandatory to carry at least $25,000 to cover the cost of injuries to a single person, $50,000 to cover the injuries of 2 or more people, and $10,000 to cover any property that is damaged. You may say, well, I'm only going to get the minimum that is required. And to be honest, that's an option. But keep in mind that whatever isn't covered by your liability can be gone after in court with a lawsuit. That means your personal property and assets like a home, savings accounts, investments, etc. can be at risk. Juries tend to be favorable to those who have been injured, especially by negligent people, and most of society already views motorcycling as a dangerous hobby to begin with, and may hold that against you, even if you're only slightly more at fault. Stack the deck in your favor as much as you can from the beginning. In some places, they have laws that will make someone who doesn't have insurance forfeit some or all of their claims with regard to pain and suffering. So, let's say you're riding your bike and a cager runs a red light and plows directly into you. They're obviously 100% at fault. Now, let's say that your hand was pinned under the bike during the accident and the bike slid for 50 feet, completely mangling your arm, leaving it paralyzed for the rest of your life. Your life is forever altered. But because you didn't have insurance, the state you live in says that you can only recover property damage, medical bills pertaining directly to the accident, and immediately lost wages. That means you might get enough to repair or replace your bike, the cost of medical treatments immediately following the accident and any physical therapy needed, along with paying for you missing 6 months of work while you were receiving skin grafts and work through the pain management and mental health counseling. But you're forever scarred. You never want to take your shirt off in public again. You end up having to change jobs, making less money than you were before because you no longer have use of both of your arms. You can no longer pick up your 5-year-old to play with them. All those are payments you'll never see because you didn't have insurance. All that said, how much liability coverage should one carry? Like I talked about earlier, personal property and assets can be targeted in a lawsuit if you don't carry a lot of liability. So if you don't own a home or don't have a lot of assets, the amount you carry isn't as critical. On the other hand, if you do own a home or have sizable assets, it might make sense to carry a higher limit. Keep in mind that things like pensions can't be targeted in lawsuits, but you should definitely check your local laws to make sure. Number 2, uninsured and underinsured coverage. Uninsured and underinsured coverage is what will save your bacon if the at-fault driver doesn't have insurance or carries a low liability amount. Using our previous example, let's say the motorcyclist did have liability coverage. They are still dealing with the same issues like a paralyzed arm, loss of future earnings due to needing to switch jobs because of the accident, loss of quality of life because they're not able to play with their children, and any potential long-term medical effects that may arise in the future. If the rider carries the basic coverage here and the driver also has the basic liability coverage threshold, the driver is definitely getting the short end of the stick. Just like we always have to be under the impression that every cager on the road is a danger to us, we also have to assume that they are all carrying the minimum in coverage. Don't let a cager's actions and then lack of liability coverage make an already bad situation even worse. This coverage for you will typically only run about 5% more of your annual insurance premium payments. So, for example, if your motorcycle insurance costs you $500 for the year, adding this coverage will only run you about an extra $25 for the year. Max out this coverage as much as you are comfortably able to do. Imagine going through the accident I described, or worse, only to find out that after the fact that you're getting what amounts to pennies of what you truly deserve due to everything that's happened. Unfortunately, this is one of those situations where you don't need it until you do, and by then it's too late and you're left holding the bag, even though you did nothing wrong. Number 3, collision and comprehensive coverage. These are pretty straightforward, are what are used to cover your bike. Collision will pay for repair or replacement of your bike no matter who is at fault. In the event that the insurance company adjuster decides it's better to just replace the bike rather than fix it, it's usually determined by a percentage threshold. It typically runs somewhere between 75 and 85%, but check with your company or any company you are considering getting a policy with. It is great that collision coverage pays regardless of who is at fault, but if you are that at-fault person, expect that your rates will likely raise in the future, but each case is different. If you don't carry collision and your bike is wrecked, the entire cost to fix or replace your motorcycle will be completely on your shoulders. Keep in mind that if you are financing any part of this bike, the lender is likely going to require both collision and comprehensive, as they want to make sure that the investment they're making with you is being protected. If the unthinkable should happen, remember that the insurance company is only going to cover the fair market value of the bike at the time of the incident, not what it was worth when you purchased it brand new. The other part to think about is the deductible. The deductible is the amount of upfront that the policy won't pay. Let's say you low-side your bike and it's going to cost $5,000 to repair, but you have a $1,000 deductible. That means you're going to be responsible for that portion, and the insurance company is cutting you a check for the $4,000 difference. You can have a high deductible, a low one, or none at all, but that will directly affect how much your insurance premiums are for that coverage. It just comes down to how much risk you're willing to take. There's few things worse than having a busted bike and you not being able to fix it because you don't have the scratch to cover the deductible. For comprehensive coverage, it'll pay for damages to your bike that wasn't caused by an accident, like theft, vandalism, and natural disasters like an earthquake, hurricane, etc. Make sure you know the limits of your coverage. After your bike is burned to a crisp because of an incorrectly replaced fuse or faulty wire, is not the time to find out that your policy doesn't cover it. When it comes to collision and comprehensive coverages, you also need to remember that you're only going to get the fair market value at the time of the incident, minus the deductible you may have. You can always adjust the deductible on your bike higher or lower to meet what you think you might need in the event that the fair market value is different than what you owe. If you're buying a relatively new bike, you might be offered a chance to purchase gap insurance. Gap insurance covers the difference between what your payoff amount is and what the value the insurance company is paying out for the bike at the time of the incident. If your bike will depreciate more than you expect or is an expensive model, it may be a good idea to consider gap insurance depending on the cost. I hope you found this video informative. If you got some value from it, please click that like button. It doesn't cost you anything and it really helps grow the Fiend fan. Check out our other videos and consider subscribing. It's also free. Ring that bell icon to be notified whenever new content is uploaded. As always, stay shiny side up. Throttle Fiend out.